This is the Waupaca Area School District Board of Education meeting.
Call to order the December meeting of the Waupaca School District. And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Maureen, how about you?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So welcome everybody here. Are we all here? Roll call. Except Steve Johnson, our president, has an excused absence tonight, so I'll be running the meeting for him. I'm sorry, Steve Shambo and Steve Johnson. Oh, that's too bad. I didn't know Shambo was going to be. Okay, so first order of business is the approval of the agenda.
I would make a motion that we approve the agenda, but would respectfully request that we remove one of the policies for consideration, additional consideration, and it's code 871-R1.
And could you just tell us which one is that one?
That's the one that is the American Library Association guidelines.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll remove that one for further consideration?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I don't have a.
So can we approve the agenda
So I
without that one item?
With that.
I'll second that with that change over, but as long as we're trying, are we going to see that again later? Is that why we're putting
That's what I would hope, is that we have further discussion.
Okay, all right, then I would approve with the alteration.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. Okay, public comment. I don't see too many people here from the public other than our guest. So I think we can move forward. Oh, Mr. Shambo is here. We can move forward with that. Next item is the approval of the minutes from our November 14th regular board meeting. Did everybody have a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Okay, and I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and the next item is communications, and we're here tonight to acknowledge our community partnership and recognition. Mr. Randy Falks is here tonight from Falks Brothers Construction. Falks has done an incredible job of partnering with the school district, particularly as we look at our beautiful field out there. So would you like to come forward, Randy?
I thought that was just in my head there.
Sorry.
It's just the season.
That was one of my kids.
Christmas.
So as, oh yes, absolutely, you're important.
Oh, I don't know about that.
As Vice President Mannion suggested or outlined already, it's thanks to the incredible partnership that we have with Falks Brothers that our field was able to be completed on a time schedule that allowed us to use it at the end of August, which was, by most people's accounting, nothing short of incredible. So
Miraculous.
Yes. So with that, we've got our Community Service Recognition Award tonight presented to Mr. Randy Falks. And it just simply says, Falks Brothers Construction in recognition of the significant and profound contributions to the district, for advancing the education of all its students, and for helping us to create a stronger community. With deep, heartfelt thanks and gratitude, the School District of Waupaca presented this December 12th, 2017.
I'd like to add too that it's not just for the school district. Obviously, we're here for the district, but Falks does so much for our greater community, for two-legged people and four-leggeds too. So thank you so much for all you do.
Well, you're welcome, and on behalf of Falks Brothers Construction and our employees, we're very grateful and thankful to be part of the Waupaca community. You know, and be able to do what we can, where we can, with what we can, and we're just very grateful to be part of Waupaca and the Waupaca School District, and just be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Treat all your employees to lunch.
Okay, that's coming on the 21st.
Oh, maybe not.
Are you buying?
No, I didn't notice I didn't say that. Okay, the next item is the National Honor Society induction. We have several young people who are being inducted.
Yes. One moment here. So Mr. Dale Felt is our National Honor Society liaison, and he has presented the following names for the 2017-2018 National Honor Society. Those names are Grant Foss, please correct me if I mispronounce, Hannah Baumgart, Brittany Burchek, Jack Menzies, Anna Ryder, Derek Holohan, Jacob Coran, John or Jack Snyder, Alex Thurman, Laura Sanders, and then we also have Bruce Sternweiss, Alyssa Engelbretson, Brett Hanke, Nathan Walksmooth, Maya Brzini, thank you, Bailey Seafeld, Marky Ray Ash, and Caitlin Schmidt. So we're very proud of all of our National Honor Society candidates.
Congratulations to all those scholars. The next item is our district administrator's report.
Yeah, so just a real brief update. This is, of course, the holiday season, and as such, we've had a number of wonderful holiday concerts around the district. I believe that there's one, even as we speak right now, out at the Chain. So as we sit here, there are...
I could hardly get out.
Yeah, I bet.
Out of it.
I bet. And of course, we've got more holiday concerts coming up between now and our holiday break. And then I also had the fame and fortune to be able to be the visiting royalty in the Madrigal over the weekend. And so I got to put on some different clothes and assume a different persona and have a lot of fun with community members, and I had the opportunity to send Mr. Felt to the stocks several times.
Well deserved, I'm sure.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Yes, and it was a full crowd both nights. The kids, of course, did just a fantastic job. The food was excellent, and I would just recommend highly, if you've not been to the Madrigal, you should really experience it. It is wonderful, and I think this was the 24th year. So
At
it's
least.
very, very well established in the community.
Did our food service company do the food?
They did not. No, this
Oh, okay.
is a catered event.
Okay.
So
Well, congratulations to the
Yeah.
Madrigals and their director.
Yes.
For an awesome,
Absolutely.
An awesome event. That's a lot of work.
I'm still waiting to hear from the talent scout, but
Yeah. Did you manage to throw some pennies to the wenches?
Oh, to the beggars.
Oh,
Yes,
the beggars.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell us about the wenches.
They used to call them.
That's what it always
They
were
used to-
called,
Our
yeah.
kids were
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's probably not politically correct anymore. Okay, well, the beggars are those less fortunate. Okay, moving right along. Our board monitoring. Tonight, technology and achievement are both on the agenda. So we will start with technology
This is the
and this long cord.
And those handkerchiefs
Wade's gotta
that just
start.
keeps going.
Yeah.
Reaches them.
So I have two things with technology this evening to share with you. The first one is, really it has to do with communication. And we've really stepped up our communication in the last year within our district. And we really are trying to open our windows, open our doors to the community. Although our doors are during the day when the kids are here a lot, we can do that through our website and through our Facebook and social media feeds. We also communicate with our community with print, phones. So with print, we no longer do a newsletter in any of our buildings, but we do have the newspaper, and stories are printed there. We do mailings, and especially in the elementary grades, there are notes sent home daily. Phone, we are communicating with phone through attendance, notices if a child is not attending appropriately. We do make phone calls home. Emergencies, we're making phone calls, and low meal balances. And then electronic, and I've already mentioned social media. We also have the ability to text parents, and our Infinite Campus portal allows parents to come in and take a look at what their students are doing on a daily basis. And then our website. And as you have noticed in the last month or so, our website was updated. It has an updated format using our new logo. It removed, through that process, any outdated information, and it became very responsive. And by responsive, I can look at it on this screen, I can have a very large screen, or I can go down to a tablet or even a phone screen, and the same website works in all of those different areas. So with our new website, we did become responsive. It allows us to have a large banner on each one of our school sites, and it also allows a different banner at the district site to celebrate those stories of what's going on within our classrooms. Each school has what's happening that shows what's happening within their school buildings, and then it also has the upcoming events in the calendar for that building, and the district has that also, including all of the events that are happening in all of the buildings. That's updated on a daily basis. And the last piece on the website that we really are highlighting what we're doing in our main programs within the district, and one of them that we really have concentrated on within our buildings and is reflected on the website is the Waupaca Works. Has a large presence and is updated daily. How are we doing? We have the ability to keep stats on our website. And I took a look, I set it up, and then as the new website came online, and then took a look in the last week, and our average visitors per day is 1,500. 70% of those visitors are from the Waupaca area and the surrounding cities, and I actually can get a breakdown of exactly where that is, whether it's Wild Rose or Watoma, etc. So 70% of our visitors are from that area, but we also have had visitors from Europe and Asia. And actually, I checked this a couple of days ago, and we only had a few visitors from Europe, and today we had quite a few more. So, we do have an exchange student there, those kinds of things. So that is really interesting. And then our highest percentage of age groups that are visiting our website are in that 18 to 34 age group, which makes sense because our children, we're serving their children.
How do you know that?
I have the ability to, Google allows me to use a tool called Google Analytics, and I set up our website with some code on it that they just keep track of it for me. So then I can go in, and this is only a small snapshot of all of the information that they can give me on our website, and the traffic that visits, and how long they stay, and what they click on. And it's really fascinating. Yeah.
Julie, I think Steve was telling us that one of your visits at one of the classrooms had an exchange.
Yeah,
with
we
what?
have an exchange with China.
Would that show up on our?
Yes.
Okay.
So that could be some of those
okay.
visits.
Yeah, when we have exchanges with other communities. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to segue into the next section of information that I'm going to share with you tonight, and I'm going to talk a little bit about student learning. Technology is really important in what we're doing in our classrooms today, especially for the students that we teach, and how they transition into their world and how they're interacting with that technology. Right now, we are very lucky in Waupaca to have daily support for all of our teachers and staff in the buildings. We have 3 technology integration specialists, 1 at each level, and 3 library media specialists, 1 at each level, that help all of our staff on a day-to-day basis, help integrate that technology into what's going on in the classrooms. That's the daily, but this summer we had a 2-day event called a tech camp. And our tech camp was held last August, August 16th and 17th. 86 staff, teachers, the majority was teachers from the school district of Waupaca, attended either one or both days. The majority attended both of those days. It was 2 days of intensive technology training put on for our staff, by our staff. There were 30 different sessions offered, and the topics that were covered were very diverse. Everything from using our telepresence devices. We have mobile devices that will allow high definition video conferencing with any place in the world, to all things Google, to smartboard training, because we have a majority of our classrooms have smart boards in them, interactive whiteboards, to social media, Twitter, formative assessments, how to use a green screen to create video, robotics, databases. And this is just a sample of what that schedule looked like. All sessions that were offered centered around improving classroom instruction with the technology tools that we have in our software. And just a few pictures from the technology session. We did do some evaluations, and some of the teachers that evaluated the 2 days said things like, very good information, and I will be using this resource on the first day of school. It was great to have time to play around with the technology, and the activity for the beginning of the year was so creative, I can't wait to use it. And you can see that some of our teachers were some of our brand new teachers. In fact, we had some teachers that attended that hadn't even been in our classrooms yet. And some of the teachers were some of our very, very veteran teachers. So we had the whole spectrum. And I think the best comment was, I can't wait to use this, was heard over and over and over again. So it was very well attended and very well received.
Julie, is the next logical step in this process of technology camp to offer the same sort of thing to students in the summertime?
Students are getting the technology every day in their classrooms.
Okay.
So especially now that we've gone one-to-one with Chromebooks in 3rd through 12th grade. So really this tech camp is preparing those teachers to continue using that technology in the classrooms. So tech camp for the kids is every single day.
Okay.
Are you hearing a lot of positive feedback from the teachers with the whole Chromebook thing? With all the students having them?
So all of the students have had Chromebooks in 3rd through 8th grade for a couple of years. Very, very positively received. We're still changing that instruction to use them as tools within the classroom and the curriculum. 9 through 12, it's a new thing. This year, although we did have the carts, so we had carts in every academic area. There are some teachers, we have the whole spectrum. So there are some teachers that, you know, this is the best thing since sliced bread, and then we have the other end of that spectrum. But I'm seeing with the supports that we've provided in the technology coach, in Stephanie, the new hire that we have this year, is very, very positive.
Do the 3rd through the younger grades still go to computer class anymore? Are there still computer labs?
We still have computer labs because the Chromebooks have a purpose, and there are some things, not very many, but a few things that a Chromebook can't do. So we still have computer labs there. We still had a computer class up until semester in the 3rd and 4th grades, and then in 5th grade. But otherwise, it's been integrated. And as we move forward, some of that is going to change with new scheduling, etc.
Awesome.
Good.
Just
also
a-
have- go
oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Pat.
I was just going to add a comment anecdotally about the integration of technology into the elementary as far as like science classes. I have a grandson who's in 4th grade in Menasha, in public school system now. And we were just chatting the other day about, I asked him about his subjects, and he said, oh, he loves science. And I said, what are you doing in science? Thinking back, when I was in 4th grade, we may have been doing solar systems or a little, kind of figuring out, they're doing circuitries and circuit boards and using battery packs to make light bulbs work and all of that sort of thing on boards. And I said something to him about robotics. Oh yeah, he said he's all into robotics. I'm like, now he's kind of nerdy, but it's like this is what the average class is doing. And I'm thinking circuits in the 4th grade. I wouldn't have known what they were talking about.
circuit was.
But it's sort of what you're talking about. It's integrating that whole concept at a very early age on how things work and how you can use them in your life. So pretty interesting, actually.
Awesome.
Pretty neat for the
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally learning from him about some of that sort of thing, and he's in 4th grade, but I don't doubt it's any different here, quite honest. Hard to have a conversation about that.
It's probably way ahead of us.
Way ahead, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
Part 2 of our board monitoring tonight was a brief update on the report cards. As you may recall, the report cards were released after our regular November board meeting. So Mr. Don Smith is going to speak to that.
And just as we kind of start, I just wanted to make sure that, so the public knows that anything we're going to talk about is open and the public has access to. If they were to Google Wisconsin DPI school report cards, they would get to the site that you see projected up here, and then they would have to click on the click here for school report cards. That's where you then see they could select what years they want to look at, what districts, so anybody can go see any of this. So that's just an important thing to know when we're looking at these, that this is definitely something anybody can go look at to compare. This is what we did. And then on here, when you're in it, you can see they have data files. So you can download a spreadsheet of every single district in the state and every single school in the state and get all of their information. So if you ever want to see all that, it's available, which is where we pull some of our information. And then for the board members, just so you guys know, as you can see, this is thick for our school report cards, the packets you have in front of you. And I know we only have a brief about 10 minutes tonight to go through it, but if any of you have questions, I'll gladly sit down with you individually and go through these page by page, explaining every single calculation and how these were created, if you're ever willing to hear some more information. So tonight, as we get to the point where we almost get stuck deep in the weeds, just know I'll gladly meet with you and go through any of this with you.
Don, just remind us, we've been using this format of report card just for 2 years, is that correct?
This calculation, yes, the DPI does alter it a little bit, and we'll talk about how this one was calculated this year in a minute. You can see if you look at report cards, so we've had them since 2011, 2012. But you're correct, the calculation though does get tweaked a little bit.
Because I see right down where your cursor is at the bottom of the page, it says no report cards were produced in 14-15.
That's correct. Yeah, that's the 1 year they didn't have any where we switched assessments. And there was kind of a fluctuation there with the DPI.
Okay.
Great one. So we just have 5 slides for us to look at tonight. Hopefully quick. Overall, the celebration, the district does exceed expectations with a score of 80, which, as you guys know, when you look at any of these, that we're pretty close to the significantly exceeds. That starts at 83 points. So it's a huge celebration for the district as a whole to be able to say, look how close we are to that significantly exceeds, which is where we're trying to go as we head towards that 5 stars for the rating. I put here how we grew from last year to this year. The green, unfortunately, doesn't project well now that I'm standing here. But you can see as a district, we were 66.3, we grew to 80, so we're up 13.7 points for the report card. WLC grew 2.3. The thing for WLC, when you're at 82.2, it's pretty hard for them to have a jump like 13 as compared to the district number. So the 2.3 is a celebration because they've now shifted from exceeds to significantly exceeds. The middle school went up 11.7 into the exceeds because they were meets before, and the high school is sitting at 41.7, which is also meets. And if you look at the 70, they went up 4.7, but the cutoff for that exceeds is 73. So the high school is pretty close to that number. So it's a quick reference. Any questions on those? Say all of them are celebrating the fact that all of them went up. And if you take the time to download all the other districts in the schools, you'll see that's definitely not the norm. that every school went up. And so there's many other districts where schools went down or went up. So it's definitely a celebration for us.
What is the criteria for a school to be evaluated? Like, is it the size, like chain is not there?
It's
because so small?
what grade levels are they assessed? So the chain only goes up through 2nd grade, and so it doesn't have any students that take the state assessments.
Oh, okay.
So that's the key. So they get what's technically called, you see the report card, I think is in there, it's essentially blank, and it says the count, alternative rating, AR, and so every single column where you normally see data, you do not see anything.
Okay.
Just because we are talking about the future of having a charter school at the chain, and those students who would be of age to take that, where would they factor in then?
They'll be their own school, so they'll have a report card.
Oh.
So they'll have a set entire, like, well, also the
charter school.
Waupaca expert, right? That's chain.
But it would just take in that grade?
The grades that are assessed.
That are in that group.
But Chain does have to fill out an alternative assessment with goals and how we met them. It's not like you don't have to send anything.
And I would think it would be off the charts.
Well, it's good.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, just saying.
This page here outlines how the district report card is calculated. In a second, we'll jump to the DPI site, so I can show you kind of how we play with that. But if you'll notice, there's this green bar at the top that's a sliding scale, because depending on your percentage of economically disadvantaged students, your report card changes in the calculation. So each one of our buildings had a slightly different calculation. So the district, our percentage of economically disadvantaged students was 39.3. And so what changes then is what amount of your student achievement or growth, because the student achievement and growth make up 50% of your score. And so then the higher your economically disadvantaged, the more growth counts for you. Because the state is essentially saying, you can't control where your kids come in, but you can control what you do with them. So then the more you get them to grow, the better. So then on the flip side, the higher your student, the lower your economically disadvantaged, the more student achievement. So if you were a school that had 1% economically disadvantaged, you would sit at about 45% for achievement and 5% for growth. If you're on the flip side, if you're at 95% economically disadvantaged, you'd see it that you'd be 45% for growth and 5% for achievement. So it's just kind of trying to help those schools who are on both ends of that spectrum. So then you can see for our district, our closing gap score accounted for 25%, and our on-track and post-secondary readiness, and that was 25%. Then to the right, it even breaks down every single section that you see in the report card and how much that counted. So if you were to look at your district report card and you'd see your graduation rate gaps, we had a score of 34.6. Well, then you jump up there, that was for 12.5% of our score. So that's where you just kind of take a look at that. And so then the calculator we'll look at comes from the DPI website. Like I said, anybody can go find this. I'm just going to refresh it to make sure it functions for us. So if you would look at a school, you'd say, we're going to look at a middle school. They had student achievement count, they had growth count, and they had closing gaps count. And then, for example, our middle school had 40% free and reduced, so we'd pull this over to 40%, as close as I can, and we'd scroll down and you'd see how their score was calculated. So it said anybody can do that. You look at the report card. On the bottom left-hand side has your percent economically disadvantaged, which gives you the ability to click and play with that. Yes.
How has that percent economically disadvantaged been tracking over time? Are we seeing that grow, shrink in our community?
It actually reduced by about 2% this past year. So we were, as a district, about 42% last year.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we're at 40%. So what the notion is that the economy is doing better. And so districts across the state and actually across the country are seeing that free and reduced population decline.
And typically then you'll notice, if you dig into schools and research them, the higher up in grade level you go, the lower it's counted, because then as students get older, they either don't want their parents to fill it out or parents don't fill it out. Like, for example, we went from 44.1 at WLC to 40 to 35 at the high school. So that traditionally drops.
Younger parents don't make as much as old parents.
Could be, true. Yeah, other ways. So that anybody can jump on and play with this calculator, depending where you have. The one difference, huge difference in terms of calculations, is that the high schools still don't have growth counted, because the high school report card is really just based on that ACT score. And so then when you only have 1 year of data, you can't compare anything. So if you were to look at a high school, you would unclick the growth box, be able to see how is there. Then you notice the green bar goes away, because there isn't two things to compare it against. It's just then, for like a high school, 40% of their score is based on pure achievement, that one ACT test. So that's something you'll forecast. We'll talk later on about the DPI is looking to potentially add some other assessments for high school, so it's no longer just the ACT in their calculation.
I noticed for the high school, well, actually maybe for all groups, they have a calculation for attendance.
Correct, yes, they do.
So what does it mean from the point of view of attendance? What would be high, I mean, under 5 days missed, or how does that?
It's looking at your attendance rate that you had as a building. And so
Okay.
there's two versions. You see that you could get a penalty if you hit what's called chronic absenteeism, which is then when students miss too much school, considered to be chronic. But then there's also just your peer attendance rate goes into the calculation.
And what would be an example of the rate that we would have in Waupaca, our attendance rate? Does it have?
Really flip, I can get that.
I mean, I assume it's a pretty small number, but I don't know that.
Yes, and so like if you have to pull out your district report card, we could jump all the way to page, anybody there faster than I am? If you, I was looking at the, on page 14 of your district one, it says like all of our students have an attendance rate of 94.7%.
And that's district-wide.
And then, so then you get an attendance rate for each school. And so you'd see that on each of the district's pages.
What page was that?
That was page 14 of the district report card at the very top. 94.7 is our attendance rate. The next celebration is we begin to take a look at how do we compare. I'm sorry for the fact this is small against all these are all of the CISA 5 schools in our region. You know, every school district is put into a CISA, and our huge celebration is that we have the highest school report card score in all of CISA 5. So that's a pretty huge jump. When you look at Wild Roses, just behind us at that 77.9, although I thought they were 79.9, but I think there's one typo there, but they're 79.9. So for the fact that we're at an 80, we're the only school in the 80, I mean, it's a huge celebration. These are the breaks, it's hard to see this bold, but these are the schools below. These are the ones that are meeting expectations. And you start to hit, this is in the, getting like the exceeds expectations. So it's a huge celebration for us to be at an 80 and be the best one in all of CISA 5. So we're pretty excited about that. As you said, it's a huge celebration. Then from there, we say we don't always want to compare us just to the people in our area. So this next one is where we pull from the state and we take a look at who are the school districts that are similar in size to us and similar in terms of economically disadvantaged. So like I said on that first web page I showed you, you can pull a spreadsheet. So it's exactly what I did. First I pulled by enrollment, and then I pulled by percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged. And then I took the schools, I think it's about like the 5 that were above us and the 5 that were below us, cut and pasted into my own sheet. And you'll see that when I sorted, Waupaca has the second highest score, with Monroe being just above us at an 80.4. So we're really beginning to look at who are the school districts just like us around the state. This was a pretty exciting in terms of who's in our building, who are the number of students that we have. So the fact that we were second from the top is pretty exciting. Any questions on that? So it's a huge celebration. So when you see our staff out in the community, please give them a huge high five, because it's a
What do you attribute this to?
What's that?
What do you attribute all of this to? The success, the increase?
I was trying to say, Dr. Neen, if you want to comment, just because since I've just finally joined Waupaca, I feel like I've spoken for people who are here.
Yeah, so the caret that you see there next to the exceeds rating denotes that we were one of, I think, only 10 districts across the state that had an increase or decrease of more than 10 points. 10-point movement on this system is significant. So the caret does denote caution when you are interpreting these results, because there is some volatility within the formula. And whenever you have that caret, DPI reviews and re-reviews the formula for each of those districts, because they don't want to put information out there, certainly, that's inaccurate. So to what do I attribute the change? Well, I think whenever you bring attention to something, I mean, that which is measured gets done. Okay, so when you bring attention to something, people pay attention to it. And last year we brought attention to student achievement, and we started talking about student achievement as a district. And so I think if we were to look at some of the research behind student achievement, just having conversations around student achievement and setting high expectations for our students does have an impact on overall achievement levels. So can I say, though, that equals the significant increase in our score? I really can't. The proof will be in the pudding next year. So what I mean by that, of course, is when we are continuing to exceed expectations, then I will certainly be jumping up and down and high-fiving people that have no idea who I am. But at this point, it's certainly something, as Don mentioned, that we need to celebrate, because it's an awesome accomplishment for our staff. It's a wonderful reflection on the district, but we can't take our eye off the prize. You know, we have, and the board knows this better than the community. We spent a whole day together a few weeks ago talking about student achievement and where we're at and where we want to go. And in order to get there, it's going to take a lot of work. Now, that's not to suggest that our employees haven't been engaged in meaningful work up until this point. Obviously, they have. You can see that, you know, the fruits of their labor is right there on the screen in front of us. But we still have much work to do. And so we'll celebrate this day for what it is, and we'll keep our eye on the future, and we're going to continue to put systems in place that are going to have a high impact on student achievement, because that's what we do as a board, as an administration, as a staff.
And I'm really glad you mentioned this, said that this isn't, alluded to the fact that this isn't the first time we've talked about student achievement. This has been a long-term focus of the district and the board and our staff. And so the 10-point jumps that we've had, I'd say carrot power. And I really do see this as the result of an investment that the district has made over the course of a number of years, and look forward to the initiatives that you and the staff have been building to continue that.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
As I said, I'll gladly meet with any of you if you have further questions, want to go through, get into the weeds, because there's a lot of pages there of data and information.
Don, just a general question, is there any, excuse me, is there any difference this year from last year in terms of either the testing time period, procedures, numbers of tests, anything? Is everything this year going to be virtually the same as last year?
Yeah, because we just finished year 2 of a 10-year contract, the Ford exam, and the ACT is a very similar contract, so it'll be very similar. The going forward, which will be nice, will be the comparing assessment against assessment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those longer-term contracts than we typically have?
Yeah, because like the Badger exam we only had for 1 year, and then WKC though we had that for a while leading up to that.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Don.
Julie, also for a great presentation. And to all our school district employees that are implementing it and on board with it. It takes a district, like you said. It's awesome. Can I ask when you shared this information with the staff?
We did. We had then like principals share that in their buildings.
And what was the reaction?
If John were here, I think he would tell you, and like WLC, there's cheers down the hall.
Were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty excited. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. The next item is school board issues, so reports on meetings attended. Has anybody attended any outlying meetings or
No, but
WASB things?
I'm looking ahead, maybe there, is there anything on here about our meeting in our state meeting coming up in?
The convention?
The convention, because I got a packet in the mail as far as being a delegate, and that's only because I've done it in the past, but I don't know if we need to make a, if that's something we can designate or.
I think we did.
We did a long time ago.
Yeah.
We were designated.
Yeah, but did that just keep carrying forward then?
We did it
We
in,
did it at
The
the organization.
yeah, in
Oh.
April,
Okay, good.
and you were in.
Okay.
So you're gonna be there?
Yeah.
Yay,
Yeah.
good, with
Yeah.
bells on. Good.
I just wanted to make sure that people were on board, we're okay with that. I
So
didn't
you
know.
have a whole month to read that big packet.
Yes,
Good.
and actually, if anybody has any concerns about school board issues, they can talk to me. I'll go to the meeting
Great.
and bring them forward if you have.
Good.
That's what you get for not attending the meeting.
That's probably what happened.
Remember, you weren't there.
There you go.
You weren't.
Okay, next item,
Good, that
school
was-
visits. This was an off month. We actually didn't have scheduled school visits this month.
I
But
thought
did
we
anybody do a visit?
Well, I did because I thought I was supposed to.
Well, there you go.
And anyway, I was supposed to visit K4. So I visited K4 at Trinity, and I had a very, very lovely visit with 17 4-year-olds. It was just great. It was heartwarming. But I love little children anyway, but it was just absolutely a delight. We went to the library and had a lot of fun. And they have that exhibit with all the animals, stuffed animals.
Oh, yeah.
The kids they were just in awe. It was just a wonderful visit. So thank you for letting me do that.
Thanks for reporting.
Well, I'll follow up on that because I went to another K4 center. I went out to Sunnyday, and I met with a new teacher to the district, Kate O'Connor, first-year teacher out there, and she was reading to her students. She has 2 classes. I was in the morning, and she was reading to them when I came in, and I was with Rhonda, who was out there, and she's wonderful because we talked a long time. But she let me interrupt them because they wonder who this old guy is. Somebody's grandpa, I'm sure. And but it was fun. The kids were real good, and she was reading a book on how to listen.
Oh.
How to listen. And so she was trying to get them focused. And of course, I came in and interrupted. But anyway, it was great. But she has 2 classes, 1921, Kate O'Connor does. She comes from Oshkosh, actually. She's living in Oshkosh and is commuting every day, but hopefully moving into our community. But I will say that the big event they're all looking forward to happens to be when Mr. Hackett comes out on Friday to be, and she told me to remind you tonight, to be Santa Claus.
You don't have to remind me, I got it already.
And if any of us want to come along at the same time, because they have breakfast and pancake
Yep.
with parents, and we're all invited, I mean, if we wanted
And
to go.
so the real Santa called you to ask you to do that?
Absolutely.
That's
Every
good that
year.
you can be
Yeah.
his helper,
Yeah.
and do that, right?
Right, and the kids were, I mentioned to the children today, somebody says that one of the children, it's cold out there. They said, or is it still windy? Because when I walked in, and I said, yeah, it's very cold. But I said, it's perfect for Santa Claus. And they were all excited about that. And of course, I'm thinking of Steve going, oh, it's so cold out here,
And there'll be snow for your sleigh. That's good.
So
Good.
anyway, it was a nice visit, and things are
Awesome.
really doing well out there. All of their students, Rhonda told me, all of their students are at Sunny Day all day. They're either in the class or they're part of their daycare program, and which is great because everybody, they're right there all day long. So she said it's been a really, really good year, and everything seems to be working real well. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Anybody else? Well, I didn't, I actually checked the schedule. I was all set to make a visit and saw we didn't have to this month. And if I did, I was gonna go K4, talk about saturate the K4. But I did, last Thursday night, I went to see Elflandia, the
Oh.
musical at the Chain School, because last month my visit was Chain School, and they were practicing when I was there and asked if I would then come back for their performance. So I went last Thursday night, and it was absolutely delightful. It was absolutely delightful to see a musical, not just a concert, but a whole musical, a half-hour musical put on by K1 and 2. It was absolutely incredible, and the second graders all had a speaking part, and they were in their right spot, and you could understand what they said, and they spoke loudly, and those little kindergartners knew all the words of 6 different songs, and they had actions, and they had costumes. It was one of those nights where you just sit back, and it's just a Christmas treat you give yourself. So, and then Miss Hare was the guest performer, kind of, with a line. And she said her line well, and she towered over all the elves. You did, because they're all this big. And it was just awesome. And I assume a lot of those costumes were provided by the parents. And they were all different, and you could tell there was a lot of thought put into it. And the whole auditorium was filled with parents, and there were two performances that day. So I was expecting that it wouldn't be that crowded. The entire PAC was filled with parents. It was delightful. So kudos to your staff, and I know it takes a school to do that. And everybody on board and practices and adjusting schedules and whatever. It was a delight. It was really a proud moment, I thought, for our district, as are all the concerts, I'm sure, that are going on in our district. So thanks for that. Okay, upcoming meetings. The deadline for filing non-candidacy papers for school board elections is December 22nd, and the deadline for filing candidacy papers is January 2nd, 2018. So any of us that are running again or are not interested in running, or any new time run people putting their hat in the ring, be mindful of those dates. We have a personnel committee meeting scheduled for this coming Monday, December 18th. It's at 4 p.m.? I thought it was 5.
Is that correct? Is it 4?
Our thing says 5.
It said 5. 5 to 7.
Well, we'll check, we'll confirm.
Yeah.
the
It is
posting.
5.
It is
5
5?
o'clock.
Okay.
It's an error.
Okay, so it's 5 o'clock p.m.
Right. And that's going to be right here, I assume?
right
That's
here,
correct.
and it will be followed by a holiday gathering at 7 o'clock p.m. that evening. And then our regular schedule January meeting will be January 9th in this room at 5:15. Okay.
Question on the candidacy papers, is that just for people whose terms are expiring?
Right.
Yes.
Do we know which terms?
Mr. Shambo, Sandy, and myself, our terms are expiring, so we're determining if we're going to run again.
Right.
Or anybody else that would like to run is welcome to, from the community, is welcome to put their names in. Okay, committee reports. We had a policy committee meeting last week. So Mr. Hackett, would you like to report on that?
We did have a meeting, and it lasted longer than the 2 hours that I was anticipating. Oh, that was because somebody told me that's how long it was going to last.
Most of them do. Not this one.
But anyway, there were several that were removed, and at this time, I would like to say that the committee made a motion to approve the ones that were approved. Do you want me to go through all the numbers, or just, because there's a lot of numbers?
The ones, those that are listed on our agenda?
Right.
Are there any that are listed on the agenda that we don't, or we want to pull out, or are not part of this?
We already pulled out
We
one.
pulled them all out.
Want me to run through the numbers quickly, Steve?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, as Steve mentioned, following new policies and policy deletions or revisions were presented. 374.1, 374.1R1, 412.1, 420, 420R1, 421, 423, 423R1, 431R1, 443, 443R1, 2, 3, and 4, 443.1 and 2, 443.21, 443.22, 443.5, 446.2R1, 2, and 3, 453.2, and 453.4, 453.4R1, 2, and 3, 454, 454.1 and 2, 458, 460, 672.1, 672.12, 672.2, 672.3, 760, 761, 833, 850, 861, 871, 871 R1 and R2.
Not R1. R1 is the one Sandy wanted removed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for, yes. 871 R1 has been removed from the
And that's-
list.
Library materials.
And the committee made a motion to approve these.
So the motion from the committee to the board is to approve all of these. So roll call or just majority? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks for all your hard work. That was a long involved.
So Steve, where are we with those that were not in here?
That
next
we're going to be
motion.
reviewing, right?
Okay, That's
So
it.
the committee also recommended adjustments to the following policies and recommended approval as adjusted. That was 431 and 443.6. So those two are ready for board approval. And you probably want to, was that a separate motion, I believe? Yes, it is.
I'll make a motion, we approve those two.
Second, we don't need a second.
It's a committee motion.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then there was a final group that was being brought back to the board this evening, but there's some explanation or additional information that the cabinet and myself have ready to share with the board per policy. So would you like to take them in order?
I would imagine that would be the best way.
Okay. 421R1.
Okay, do we have copies of those ahead in front of us?
They are in your packet. Well, they're out there.
Okay. Well,
Okay, well, maybe somebody could do that, hit that, because I don't think I have
G.
So 421R1 is conditions and standards and procedures for expectations to age other admissions requirements for kindergarten or first grade. And there was a question in D2 regarding if a student early admission to first grade without attending kindergarten. And the concern was the wording towards the end of that paragraph that said at a minimum the child must demonstrate the academic skills and aptitudes expected of high achieving student who is at the end of a first grade. And that language has been changed to be eligible for grade level promotion. The child must demonstrate superior cognitive ability, academic skill level, and social emotional functioning as demonstrated on standardized assessments.
So it doesn't really say what time of the year it needs to be, just at some point. Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you. That's a lot clearer.
443.4.
This is the one where we were questioning the wording, I think related to drug testing, correct? Greg, help me with that one, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Just want to be see which.
So a student may be required to submit to a breath test to determine the presence of alcohol and/or a drug test to determine the presence of controlled substances. So Don and I did have a conversation with Attorney Shayna Lewis, and she drafted the revised policy that you have in front of you. However, we had also reached out to WASB for their comment and rationale for not including the drug test in their template language. And they cautioned against including a drug assessment because a drug assessment requires medical personnel, and so there will be a price tag that comes along with expecting a student to submit to a drug test. So
That was the concern, the cost, or?
well, because it requires a blood draw.
Yes.
And as we, hypothesized, blood draws can be, they can be against people's beliefs, and they are currently the subject of a fair amount of controversy.
Mhm.
So although we do have a policy at the ready for the board's approval that includes the drug testing language, my original assessment would align with that of WASB, and that we actually go back to the initial policy, which did not include a drug assessment. So, but that's the board's decision.
So as we look at the language that's on this particular, from what is the difference in the language you're looking at compared to what we looked at last week?
This says, or a drug test. The original language did not have a drug test reference, it was alcohol-related only.
I would move that we stick with the original language.
I second that.
Discussion?
Appreciate your looking into it.
Sure. So as we look at this, then are we just going to eliminate that, just that language, and then that'll be okay? Is that?
Yeah, we'll go back to the original document that was
Okay.
absent any drug test reference. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Do we need to vote on that, or we'll vote on all of them
Yeah.
together?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, the third one?
453.4, administering medication to students.
In the third paragraph down, it reads, no school personnel other than a healthcare professional shall be involuntarily required to administer any medication to a student by any means other than ingestion. And that is a state statute, so we cannot change that at all. One of the questions was, well, how do the education assistant job descriptions reflect, the expectations of our educational assistants. And in there, we have a description that says they may be asked to administer medication to students. And so it is written in there with a may. But again, it is not something that we can force them to do. When we do hire people for specific jobs, like I had explained during the policy meeting, is that we look specifically for people who are willing to do those tasks for specific students. But it is, we cannot force anything.
So you're suggesting that the language that's presently there ought to just remain as is?
It must remain as is.
It must remain as is.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, the next policy, 461.
Higher Ed Excellence Scholarship.
So this one, we had a question on getting into the tiebreakers. You want us to follow up, and Randy had spoken to our counselors, and they believe that, in principle, that second tiebreaker of the greatest number of advanced placement dual credit courses, they thought that students have enough notice and have enough awareness about that. They feel confident in keeping that as the second tiebreaker.
And Pat, I know that your concern too was, well, what if they have a slow start to high school? Well, it's based on, they have to have a 4.0 in order to.
No, it wasn't the slow start in terms of the grade point average, but it was the knowledge of knowing that if they chose certain courses that were not in that AP advanced placement and or CAP course arena, then they may not be eligible if it came down to a tie at the end.
Okay.
And that was the difference. And you know, if students are all, if everybody feels comfortable that they know all that information ahead of time, beginning their high school career. In fact, we talked about it then at the 8th grade level, that should be very, very well documented, so that everybody understands, so that when they're freshmen and they might want to take, advanced placement history, which they could, that might be something they think about a little differently than to say, well, I'm just going to worry about a 4.0, which is important, but in reality, it may come back later if they, hadn't taken some classes without knowing.
Yes, and that is a directive that was given to the school counselors, the high school counselors, as they share with the 8th graders, that we would like them to specifically emphasize this with them and those options as they're preparing for their 4-year plan in high school. So.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, Sandy and I talked, or we both kind of argued about, or not argued, but discussed that some students, their career path kind of takes them out of that arena a little bit, and that may or may not be purposely done sometimes, but it's sort of unfortunate because they might be great students and perfectly qualified, but because they didn't take AP this or that, instead they took band and choir, art and home ec, You know.
And I addressed that with the counselors as well, because I know that that was a concern, and they have said that, no, that is not an issue, and students have qualified for this, even though they're really, maybe their emphasis is in the arts, that they have been able to work out schedules with them and have gotten very creative so that they can take those other courses and balance the two.
If a student, and we can have this discussion later, but if a student were to take an AP test based on self-study and do well in it and pass, but it's not an AP course that we offer here because we don't offer it as an AP course, would they get credit for having taken an AP? Something to think about later.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of the arts, there probably are AP art classes that we don't offer,
Correct.
but a student might be able to take. Anyhow, that's,
I'll have to check into that. That's a good question. Thank you.
So this particular policy hasn't changed anything on the language?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're all okay with this?
yeah.
Okay, policy 720, school safety plans and facility safety.
Yes, and policy 720 just had some general cleanup that was in order. There were a couple of positions that needed to be identified that still had the brackets and the underline and the italicized print. And so those positions have been identified, and the policy is clean and ready to go. It has been vetted with our principals as well.
This is where we have named people are named in, wasn't that part of it here?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay? Everybody comfortable with that? All right, moving on to use of private vehicles to transport students, 751.4.
Okay, all these policies, the conjunction of all the 700 series related to that 751.4, the waiver, the new form, 751.5, 751.R1, and all those were vetted by Bob Butler of WASB in conjunction with M3, our insurance company, Mark Meeks, and collectively there was cleanup, I believe originally on 751.4. So that has been cleaned up. A lot of that was written in red. That this was written by Bob Butler. One of the questions I believe that arose was the students driving. But one of the thing that they indicate is that so by taking students out of the mix, then siblings would not be allowed to drive siblings to the event. So my brother, so to speak, would not be allowed then to pick me up at an event, so that would negate that. So they indicate that this policy as written, as cleaned up, is vetted by them as well. And one of the other thing is the waiver is in conjunction with this that the board wanted to see was written by Bob Butler, and the waiver indicates, well, all individuals are required by law to have insurance, proof of insurance, so that is the law of the land. So by signing this waiver, it indicates that they are, well, once again, they need to have insurance regardless, and this waiver just solidifies, without getting the documentation of proof of insurance to attach it, they're solidifying and taking responsibility. We're always a secondary insured with the district, so immediately if something were to occur, forbid anything an accident were to occur, it really goes straight to their insurance line, and then we're the secondary insurance, so literally this covers the district. So all the other policies, I'm just going to piggyback, do they parallel, do they interrelate, do they make sense? And according to Bob Butler, yes, so they all parallel and interrelate with each other, and I think the other ones just included some getting away from all the underlines as Pat suggested, and those variances have been cleaned up. So that's what I came up with the vetting from WASB with these policies.
So let's be real clear here, Carl, because I think this one comes up more than anything else that I can think of in terms of on a pretty regular basis. So if a parent, and Steve Johnson were here, he could help a little because I know he made mention of this, that he does it quite frequently. If a parent at an event, school event on the road, say in Winneconne, decides that after the event, they want to take their child home in their car,
Oh, absolutely.
they need to have this waiver
No,
signed?
they don't. It's their child. They can take their child anywhere they want.
But another child
Another child, they would need a waiver form.
from the child's parent?
Yes.
See, now, I thought when we talked about it, though, didn't we?
Yes, that was my interpretation of our discussion also.
That they needed to have something signed, wasn't it?
Even if it were their
Even
own
if it was your
child.
own. That's why we questioned that. And Steve Johnson said, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I remember him saying anyway, that even if it was written on a piece of paper at the event, I'm taking my son or daughter
Oh,
home with me.
absolutely. Steve is
But he
correct.
couldn't just, or that person just couldn't go with their parent without something, a written
Right,
document.
a written piece of paper acknowledging something as such would be perfectly
Right.
acceptable. But there again, if indeed they don't follow that, the district still is, because we have procedures in play, we are still then the secondary insured because we didn't make that decision. They made that decision. But a piece of paper would be the acknowledgement we would need. We already have it verified what our rules and regulations are to cover us. And if they deviate from that, but quite frankly, somebody probably will deviate from that. And at least the district has a policy and procedure in play. And one of the things that was, you can see this policy was 1983, I believe, or 1985, 1993. This policy needed to be updated for a long time, so.
But that waiver form that I'm looking at right there is not necessary for a parent to fill out prior to the event to take their child home.
Their own child or another child?
Their own child.
No, not their own child, they can.
Okay.
It's
Right
their
on a
own
piece of
child.
paper.
So again, if I'm the coach, then I can say, Mr. Johnson, if you want to take your son home, that's fine. If you leave me a signature or sign something,
And then
you're good to go.
Then we'll put that in the folder, yes. So
Okay.
their own parent definitely
Okay.
has dominion over their own child.
So I think one of the opportunities here is just an opportunity of efficiency. We can take this language, first of all, we should make this a PDF fillable form, accessible for our parents. But we can take the language in this waiver and we can create for lack of the appropriate, descriptor right now, just a running list. So we put the waiver language on a form, and then we have child's name, driver, date, and parents can then sign off. And then there are two things here. One is having the signature on the waiver itself. The other is the coach not being at an event away from the district and saying, what happened to Greg?
Right, and
I
that's
never
exactly
saw
the
him.
problem,
I never
right.
saw
Right.
him
Right.
leave. His name's not on the sign-out list. So there are two issues at play there.
Well, actually,
we can solve them both, I think.
Well, actually, the third issue that I've come across personally, and I've had other, is the inconsistency from one coach to the next.
And
A parent will say, well, gee, we went to track meet and the coach said fine with a thing, and you're saying they have to go home on the bus, they can't ride with you. Somehow that's got to be alleviated so parents don't go, wait a minute.
That will be addressed in the future.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the other question that I had, there used to be an issue with the madrigals, and the kids having a gig on a Sunday morning or whatever, and them being able to drive themselves there and drive another student. Is that all? Do they go by bus now, or how does that work?
I don't know how they transport.
Well, for the last 2 years, right, since the incident took place on the way to New London,
Right.
we've implemented that all the magical performances that Anna schedules go by bus transportation.
They
The
do.
School-sponsored event that she's coordinating, so we're using busing only.
Okay.
If it's school sponsored, yes, we also, but if
Okay.
we really try to provide a bus, and if we want to deviate, then we go over here.
Okay. So if a parent would opt to not have their child ride the bus and, the church is right down the block, can they submit something and say, I'll bring my
It's
child?
against their own child, they can make the decision for their own family.
Yeah, okay, good. Or take them home from a performance. Okay, that's a good thing. Okay, so we're good with all of these then? included 751.5R1.
Yes, I'm not sure if, was the motion made by the committee
No.
yet for those or forthcoming?
Not yet.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead.
Wasn't there some discussion about the use of firearms on school forest?
Remember, we talked about pulling that. We pulled that off of that particular.
I think it was pulled off.
It was pulled off.
Mhm.
So what we're gonna vote on would be with that out. Because that was part of the other ones. There were several changes that were made in some of those that we either changed language right then
I
and
think
there.
those
or-
aren't even on this list.
They aren't
So
on
the
the
firearms will be
Or
on.
they're not on the agenda yet?
The library
Okay.
association.
Yeah.
So there are a few that are not included here that will be addressed at a future policy meeting.
Right, and they were removed from this
Okay.
list.
So the
Okay.
ones, all of the policies that we're voting on right now are all that have been discussed and approved, and so the motion is coming forward that we approve them. So
Second.
can we hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yay, good work, committee.
Yeah, that was over 50 policies.
And staff, that was a lot of research and a lot of work. Thank you so much. Okay, moving right along. Administrator, the MOU report with King, that's interesting.
Yes, this is just a brief memorandum of understanding with the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs. And Executive Limitation 3F requires that the board actually take action on this. So you will see those references in my memos moving forward. Essentially, this is an agreement between the district's transportation department, and the fine folks at King. So in the event there were to be a need to evacuate a number of the residents, we would use our district buses. They would reimburse us for any fuel costs as well as any other transportation costs. And to the extent that we weren't in the middle of a bus run, we would help facilitate the evacuation process with our vehicles. And then we would set up a temporary shelter or a shelter in place in our gymnasium. They would provide all of the equipment, all of the staff, all of the essential materials, and they would reimburse the district, for example, if there were a big scratch that got placed into the gym floor. So those are the two memorandums. They have been vetted by legal, and they're for your consideration.
I make a motion, we approve those.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Are we one of a few sites that have been designated for them?
Yes, so we are not the only site that they are working with, but we are certainly the closest. As we began this conversation, I was fascinated to learn that King is the second largest veteran home in the nation. And so they are very grateful to have this facility so close to them in the event of
Where's number
emergency.
one?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
And have they had a plan?
No.
Have they had a plan like this before?
They have not, no. This is just of late that they have seen the need for emergency plans of this nature.
Wow.
When I read this, I was very excited to read it and think that the school district of Waupaca is a part of this. I thought it was very neat and very worthwhile. So I don't know if you came up with the idea or King did. I imagine King did, but it was a very good idea.
King did.
But amazing that it's, in this day and age, it's on the radar. You know, that's the thing that,
Well, it goes back to our last spring, our community conversation about collaboration, that we're all kind of in the same situation in many regards. So the more we can collaborate, the better off we all are.
it's awesome. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor with the second discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The second is the mission, vision, priorities, values update.
Yes, so as Mr. Fair just mentioned, our hashtag Waupaca Way 2K30 community conversation. This is really just an update for the board as to the progress that we continue to make. You may recall that some time ago, the board, as part of a workshop, developed a very healthy list of core values. And so under Don Smith's leadership, he has worked with the principals and a number of other employees from around the district, and they have taken that list and they have revised the core values to 5. Those 5 are citizenship, creativity, wellness, compassion, and perseverance. And then you can see that each one of those categories also encompasses many of the other core values that the board had identified. So it's not that your work was not regarded or considered, but rather it was really a jumping off point. So those 5 core areas now are being incorporated into our one-page, direction, if you will. And so we are continually working to determine, what type of format we want to put out there for the rest of the world. As Julie mentioned earlier, communication is a big part of the district, and a document such as this communicates where the district is currently and where we see ourselves going in the future. And so as we look to bring new membership, not only to the school district, but to the community, this type of document is crucial and plays a very vital role. So this is simply an update for the board this evening, and you will continue to see new and revised what's the word I'm looking for? Renditions, I guess, of this document. And you can see that the one that we began with is framed back there in the back of the board right now. So this is a work in progress. Just an update for you tonight.
Speaking about an update on it, was it part of the overall gathering a year ago or so that we were to revisit this within a year or something? Do I remember that correctly?
I believe that's what I had indicated I was going to do, and we have actually, I think, updated and reported out on our progress a number of times since last April, but certainly at our 1-year anniversary mark, April or maybe the May meeting, we'll again provide an update for the board and for the community. So that was information only.
Good, thank you. Okay, which brings us to the last thing on our agenda, the consent agenda.
I move approval.
I move approval.
Second.
Second, okay. And I'd like to make note of the resignations and retirements. So thanks for all of those that have given their hard work, and our coaches, and our hires, and our transfers. So roll call on this, right?
Pat Fair?
Aye.
Steve Hackett?
Aye.
Steve Shambo?
Aye.
Sandy Robinson?
Yes.
Dimitri?
Aye.
Betty Manning?
Yes. Okay. Which brings us to
Move that
adjournment.
we adjourn?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you all for coming.